Good afternoon, YouTube, and welcome back once again to Fat Cat Collections. Today, guys, want to do another discussion video, and the topic of today's video is Rolex increases their prices as of 2022. I've been seeing a lot of guys putting up content on YouTube discussing this, and being that I'm a watch enthusiast myself, although not a Rolex owner or a Rolex fan, I did want to kind of bring it up for anybody who might have discovered this video based on those keywords, and just kind of give you guys my opinion on that. And I see a lot of Rolex owners, Rolex enthusiasts, kind of freaking out about it. And I think it's kind of comical to me. This is just another perfect example of how Rolex really just wants to really get in there. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of funny that when a lot of guys review or talk about the Rolex price hike or increase, they are like somehow baffled by it, or they're either like explaining how it's some kind of like really intelligent move on Rolex to do that. And I really think these guys is really overcomplicated. This isn't another, like a term I always say, this isn't rocket science. This is no different than any other product out there that is super popular. If we look right now with what's going on in our economy, prices of everything is going up. Have you gone to Costco or BJ's and looked at the price of meat? I mean, the price of steaks are almost what you can go and actually go and get a steak at a restaurant for. And to me, just to give you guys a little bit of just the way my mind works is I won't get ripped off on anything. It doesn't matter how much I like it. If tomorrow Invicta Watches started charging 4 times as much for the watches, I would stop buying Invicta Watches, plain and simple, because there's a certain price point for me that I find enjoyable. Once you go past that, to me it's not cost effective, and it doesn't really matter the fact that I can afford it or not. If I want to go out tomorrow, if you can even find one, right? If I want to go out tomorrow and go buy a solid gold Rolex cash, I can go ahead and do that. But I'm not going to go ahead and waste all that money on doing so. To me, in my mind, it's just not something that would bring me enough enjoyment. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't buy one if that's what you're looking for. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't pay the increased price on Rolex. What Rolex is, obviously like any other brand out there, this is not some kind of high-tech marketing. Here's the thing, if Invicta did it, they'd be deceptive. If Rolex does it, they're geniuses, right? And I just think it's really comical. There's nothing to overcomplicate here. A product is doing well. A product is extremely popular. There is a frenzy, especially right now with the Rolex brand. People are willing to pay insane prices for watches that are a fraction of that to manufacture. I'm sorry, no matter what your labor rates are, no matter what your whatever. Basically, long story short, if you have a stainless steel watch, okay, it does not matter what your labor rates are. It doesn't matter what those materials cost are. There's no way the watch is anything close to $18,000 for, just an example, 116710 Rolex, just to happen to be one of the Batmans I pulled up on eBay. If you look at the price on the Batmans, GMT Batmans, you're looking at the minimum I found listed under just Rolex Batman, under that simple search term, not in any category, not watches, just across the board. The cheapest price is $17,500 plus $200 for shipping, which I think is, I don't understand why it'd be $200 for shipping, but back in the day, eBay used to not charge you on the shipping. There was no fees on shipping. Nowadays, I think they charge you just based on the flat rate you collect, so which is 15%. I think there is a cap on that as well. I'm not 100% sure because I don't sell really expensive items on eBay. But I think it's really funny that this watch to manufacture, you probably have no more than $200 or $300 in materials on this thing. Now, you understand when you make any product, there are things that go into that. Research, R&D. You have your manufacturing, your labor costs, health insurance, retirement plans. All that stuff is factored in. But there's no way that a company like Rolex has to charge $17,000 for a stainless steel watch. This is not a NASA space shuttle. This isn't, I mean, if I can go get a previously owned Jaguar or Mercedes-Benz for 20 grand, you're telling me this watch is so high-tech? There's a frenzy going on. Rolex is flat out ripping people off. But here's the thing, you can't really knock Rolex for it because supply and demand dictates price, right? Rolex right now, you know, if you've listened to a lot of the chatter on the internet and YouTube, you know, they're hard to get. The Rolex are hard to get. They're not mass producing them like they used to. Now, we can make all kinds of assumptions. Oh, they don't have the staff for it. If Rolex is selling watches regardless, whether or not they want to sell more or less, they're still selling those watches. So what makes more sense, to actually raise the price of what you're selling and make more money, or produce more and make more money? Obviously, Rolex is going to raise the price. And it's no different with anything else. I mean, there's nothing surprises me in 2022 that isn't going to go up. Bread, milk, steaks, I mean, everything. Honestly, I've even seen, and I've mentioned a few of my videos, the Invicta prices have been going up. This year, I found, you know, and I always refer to Invicta stores, that's my affiliate for Invicta. I found this year to be the slowest year out of any year that I've ever been referring, and not just for just Invicta, but in general, right? It was a slower year. I find it interesting that a lot of the Invicta stores' watches now, they're generally the ones that aren't really, you know, they're not, like when Invicta stores first started really gaining traction, maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, you know, you were finding all the newer models. Now it seems like all those new models are going right to the home shopping networks. And, you know, a lot of the Invicta watches, the newer ones, are in the, I would say, average like $350 to $400, $500 price range. So back when I was looking at a lot of Invicta watches, you could find them in the sub 200. You could definitely find them in Invicta stores. I remember getting insane deals on newer model watches, very desirable ones that were, you know, $136 for Grand Octane. So, you know, the price on everything has gone up. You know, if companies are going to start paying their employees better, which I am 100% for, I don't think anybody should be working for $8 an hour. And I think that despite your political affiliation, despite your views on that, I personally am allowed to feel what I want, just like you are. But I do feel like it's a good thing. I don't mind paying more for a product for the good of somebody else. You know, I look at a watch as kind of a luxury item. You know, nobody needs 160 watches. Nobody needs an $18,000 watch, right? It's something you get because it makes you happy. They're all luxury items. Nobody needs to have a big giant sea hunter on their wrist, just like nobody needs to have an $18,000 Rolex. It's just something we like and we enjoy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I don't mind, for the good of people, paying more for that. Now, there is a point I can either, and there's a lot of people with a lot more money than me, of course, way more, that those little price differences don't make a difference. If some people like Invicta watches so much, just like Rolex, that they'll pay whatever they charge. It doesn't really matter. And that's where the supply and demand comes up. You create a product that's super popular, they will start to slowly increase the prices. And I think that that'll happen indefinitely. And they kind of condition you to say, hey, that's what they cost. Just like Rolex, like, hey, that's just what they cost. It doesn't, a lot of people don't stop and say, man, I'm getting friggin' ripped off. Now, like I said, if Invicta watches jumped up to, you know, for most models, you know, $600, I'm probably not going to ever buy another Invicta watch again. I mean, that doesn't mean you shouldn't. I just, for my likes and needs, there's a point, there's a limit to everything what I like to spend my money on. Watches, you guys know, if something I really want, I'll spend around that $300 price point. But I really prefer to keep it in the $100 to $150. I'll wait for the deals. I don't really get too hot on anything. I don't invest too much emotional desire for anything that makes me want to get ripped off. There are a few that I have, like for instance, when I got my black sub-aqua specialty with the black spinel, I've been looking for years for an all black murdered out black ice watch that is of quality. And if you look, unless you want to spend thousands of dollars, there's not a lot of options. You know, you have brands like Hello Ice, you have other of those hip hop kind of brands out there, the iced out models, but they're not in the same category as an Invicta watch. So when they came out that watch, I know I paid a little bit too much. I think I paid about $350. But I didn't want to wait because I think it did go on sale for about $280, but if I waited, I might have lost out. Now you can't even find it. So I'm really glad I got it. But there are sometimes for something that you're really hot over that you're willing to pay a little more. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's your money. Do what you want. But again, for me, speaking on my own opinions, you know, if the watch was $5, I just would have been like, too much. You know, I'm not going to spend that much money on it. Now, for a gun, I like to keep, you know, my price points in the under 5 range. You know, I mean, there's lots of, like anything out there, there's lots of great quality products out there that you don't have to spend an arm and leg for. Start comparing 1911s. You can spend thousands of dollars on a 1911, or you can spend $400 on a 1911. When we compare those things side by side, there's not a lot of differences. If you have a company that's reputable and knows what they're doing, sure, new companies coming out that maybe don't have the experience, maybe we'll make a product that has issues. But for and this isn't about guns, but when you have a product or a type of product that's been, or a model that's been done over and over again, they've kind of worked out the kinks. And watches are no different. When it comes to watches, they've been around forever. Everybody and their brother's been making automatic movements. Everybody and their brother, he knows how to make a watch, right? Modern manufacturing is kind of a no-brainer nowadays. So there's really nothing high-tech about any of these watches that they need to be that much, and honestly that you need that level of precision that you're not going to, there's not anybody really making any garbage out there, is my point. As long as it's a reputable brand. A lot of the Chinese brands, Thyssen, Liji, I've said before, those AliExpress brands, of course, if you order one of those watches, you may have good or bad luck. You may have a seller selling things that they didn't check out. These are kind of things that, quality control, and of course, the retailer quality control, right? Or customer service. So, with a Rolex, if you go to an AD and buy a Rolex, of course, that watch is going to be looked over and you're paying tons of money for it. The odds of you having an issue with a Rolex as compared to a Liji, of course, it's a lot higher with a Liji watch. But that doesn't mean if you get one that's good and you have a good one, that's not going to be a fantastic quality watch. You could say that about anything out there. But when we compare, if they can make a Liji watch that costs $50, made of 316 stainless steel, all the specs that are kind of in line with the Rolex, other than the movement, you might find, I think it's called a chapter ring. Don't quote me on that. The adapter ring. Obviously a lot of these inexpensive automatic movements where they fit the movement to the watch. Whereas a Rolex, the whole thing is built to be one, right? It's one. Perfectly customized machine. Rolex doesn't take a Rolex and say, hey, we got a movement, let's adapt it to fit. They make the movement to fit the watch, or vice versa. They make the watch fit the movement. So, and if there is any kind of adapter ring, it's not going to be a plastic cheapy ring you're going to find. But that doesn't mean it's bad. That inside ring in a lot of watches isn't subjected to any abuse. It's sealed in a watch. It's not being subjected to any kind of real force, so it doesn't really make a difference in my opinion. Now, again, I'm not saying that you can have that it's higher quality than a Rolex. Of course, naturally, a Rolex, if you pop the back, it's going to be of higher quality than an Invicta or, of course, an Aragon or any of these Chinese companies. But it doesn't make one a shitter. It doesn't make the other one worth what you're paying. There's lots of watches out there that you don't have to spend that kind of money to get an insanely high quality watch. You can probably spend, $800 and get a watch, and I hate using price, but that has all the features and all those, extras a Rolex has without spending Rolex prices. But again, Rolex is a status symbol. It is, of course, a brand that people take pride in wearing on their wrist. It is, I think, despite the fact that I never will own one. Now, if I win $100 million, right, I'll own one, okay? But that money doesn't mean anything, you know what I mean? So I just don't. I'll never personally own. I'll never be a working class stiff and own a Rolex watch. It's too much money to spend on something that's not really going to bring me any more happiness than this tactical frog I got for $160. So again, always buy what you like. Always buy what's going to make you happy. But don't think that you're just. To me, when I see somebody wearing a Rolex, I'm like, man, why did you? But this shouldn't affect your opinion and whether or not you want to buy one or have one in your collection. To me, when I buy one, when I see a guy wearing a Rolex, and I don't want to be too judgmental here, but this is the way we all judge. When you see me wearing an Invicta, you judge me as well. So that's just part of life. It's about the person behind what you see, right? And ultimately, the difference between me and a watch snob, right, is when they look at me wearing an Invicta, they'll be like, "Oh man, it looks hideous. Oh, it looks like a fool." I don't think a guy wearing a Rolex looks like a fool. What I see inside, and I would never try to hurt anybody's feelings or make them feel inferior because it's their money. It's buy what you like, But to me, when I see a guy wearing a Rolex, my first thought is it's probably fake. at least I hope it is, because then if it is fake, then I'm like, all right, well, he values his money more, right? And he obviously understands that there's not much of a difference between a fake and a real one when it's actually on the wrist, walking around, people looking at it. There's really it might be more accurate, right? But I mean, there's not really much of a difference as far as what people are actually going to see and judge you for. Most people who don't know anything about watches, and even if you do, you really have to kind of look at that with a fine-tooth comb, usually with a macro lens to be able to or a jeweler's loupe, to be able to really see that it's not real, right? Even then, they become extremely good. If you get a good one, you really can't tell the difference unless you open up the back. Even then, they're making ones that are very tough to distinguish, right? But when I look at a guy wearing one, if we let's say we put aside the fact that it might be fake, we know it's real. To me, I say, all right, well, he must have a lot of money. And if, cool, good for him. But then I say, man, the only real reason you would buy that with all the other options out there is only because you want people to know that you spent a lot of money on your watch. You're just looking to, it's a show-off piece. That's the only thing that makes any sense about the brand. That's it. I don't care what all these guys say about quality, about heritage. Those are all little factors. But people buy Rolex because it's a subtle, flashy brand, right? I mean, like any of these high-end luxury watches that they're charging $100,000 on, or $100,000 for. You look at Jay-Z, he just bought one of those AP, Tiffany & Company collaborations. It was millions. Like that watch is no better than a pro diver, right? I mean, maybe a little more accurate. Just like, it's still 316 stainless steel. I don't know if that one's actually solid gold or not. If it is, then obviously there's going to be a price difference. But, the watch isn't worth that much money. And I watched another guy the other day. He was, and I mentioned in one of my other videos, he was talking about how, certain watches that are that have been customized and iced out, and this is a $20 million watch. I think it was Floyd Mayweather's watch. He was critiquing that, saying, well, it doesn't make it $20 million. I can make a watch and say it's worth $20 million. But he used that argument for that particular watch, but they don't use that argument for Rolex. Rolex will charge what people are willing to pay. And now if Rolex would have done a huge price hike, maybe their sales might have been affected, right? But slowly, what's the difference to me when you're spending $18,000 on a watch? What's the difference to pay 10% more? You're gonna buy it. Now I don't know exactly what the whole percentage is. I saw one of the usual suspects, the usual knuckleheads on YouTube show a price list or a increase list. I'm not sure where he got it from. I don't know its accuracy. But just by Googling, and if you just go to, we'll do it together, Rolex 2022 price increase, right? We just Google that. It comes up with a price of, as outlined by it says here, as outlined by U.S.-based watch production professional watches, Rolex increase in retail prices by an average of 3.4%. So I'm not sure where this, douche got the 11% from, but maybe it's specific models. The list made it look like a lot of the percentages went from like one of the Submariners, almost 11%, and slowly decreased down to 3.4. On average, that would make the average 3.4. So I think the amount people, if we just say the average is 3.4%, that's not a huge increase. And if you're spending that much money already, to me, I always find it funny too when people totally off the subject, but just as an example, when people are like, oh, what's the price of gas over here? Like, gas prices don't fluctuate that much around your town. Like, where are you going to go and say, you're going to drive somewhere that's not convenient to save 15 cents a gallon? Like, what's the difference if you're going to fill your tank and spend 40 bucks or 43 or 44 bucks? Who gives a shit? Like I just don't, I can't imagine doing that, It's like, who cares? It's not enough money to really matter. Now, if you are, really paycheck to paycheck, that $5 might mean something. But if you're buying a fucking Rolex, like, you're not really worried about your next paycheck, right? I mean, even if you may worry about your paychecks, even if that's like all your money, right? You're still made a decision to buy. You saved up, so you're not really too concerned with if you saved $18,000 to buy a Batman and you've committed to doing that as a working class stiff. Then you can't get it tomorrow. You might be, I need another $1,000 if it went up 10%, or whatever the percentage may be based on the price, 10,000, $1,000, whatever it may be. So you're not really, you might be like, shit, you know, but in the Rolex mind, they're going to be like, they don't really look at that as being like, oh, I'm getting ripped off. They just look at that as like, I'll get it back. You know, I'll be able to sell for more because the prices keeps going up. There is a limit to that, I think, eventually. I think there is a point with anything where the price will become high enough where a lot of people aren't going to buy it. But when it comes to luxury goods, as we see with the movie industry, movie stars, artists in general, people with a lot of money, you know, executives, whoever it may be, the price, once you hit a certain price in your life as far as your savings and your wealth, money doesn't matter anymore, and they will pay whatever. So a company like Rolex isn't really going to, I think, in my opinion, really hurt themselves by raising the price. You know, it'll just drive the price of pre-owned models up. You know, it's not rocket science. Other guys are like, this is what's going to happen. Like nobody thought of that. Like, obviously, Rolex is increasing the price because a lot of the pre-owned watches are going up in price, and vice versa. Rolex, even if pre-owned watches weren't going up in price, you know, I doubt that Rolex would have raised the price, but they still might have. So whatever Rolex does as a company is up to Rolex, of course. And if people are willing to pay it, which I think you'll always have people willing to pay it. There's always somebody with a lot of money. If you're dropping $20,000 on a watch, you know, if we pretend that is in line with your income, right? A lot of times it's not with people. You know, we see it all the time. People living paycheck to paycheck, super in debt, you know, gigantic car payments, you know. I mean, they got a Mercedes-Benz, but they barely put in any gas in the tank. I mean, that's why they're driving to Costco to get that 15-cent saving. But, you know, regardless of the financial situation, there are people who will pay it no matter what. With the pre-owned market, you know, Rolex, they're not fools. They're not going to sit back and allow people to constantly keep making more money on pre-owned, so they're going to raise the price. That'll again raise the price on pre-owned. You know, once the pre-owned prices get high enough or close enough to brand new, of course people aren't going to buy pre-owned. So there's kind of a dance there, kind of a balance. You know, ultimately, I don't give a shit because I'll never friggin' buy one. But I did want to put that out there. There is a price increase on a Rolex, right next to your milk, right next to your steaks, and like anything else in this world, everything goes up in price. Everything. Your taxes. The one thing that isn't really going up to match all that is what you make. Generally, that's not going up. Your cost of living raises generally do not cancel out that inflation cost for everything. New schools want to be built. Oh, we'll just tax you for it. You know, whatever it is, they just find a way to squeeze the middle class more. So whatever, it is what it is. I'm getting off my soapbox. I digress. But regardless, like I always say, buy what you like, buy what makes you happy. I just want to put this video out there for, you know, I know the Rolex snobs, the trolls out there. I know they love it when I do Rolex videos. So I just wanted to welcome you to 2022 with a fresh Fat Cat Collections Rolex video commentary. So anyway, guys, always buy what makes you happy. You know, it's your money. Be happy. Whatever. Just don't tell me what to do. Have a great day, guys. Take care.